Welcome back to the Life Outside podcast. My name is Cam Bostock, and on this week's episode, I chat with Jessica Guo. This year, Jess became the first woman to through-hike both the Continental Divide Trail and the Great Divide Trail back-to-back, a 3,500-mile trek from Mexico across the entire USA and into Canada. She spent 5 spectacular and challenging months on trail, sharing the entire adventure through daily vlogs on social media. Jess dives into her struggles with mental health and how the trail has helped her heal. She shares wild and inspiring stories from her adventures, including a remote helicopter rescue where she earned her trail name Stitches, and how her parents supported her every step of the way, despite having doubts about their daughter walking alone through the wilderness for 153 days. We hope you enjoy. The Life Outside podcast is proudly brought to you by OptiVenture, the first supplement and nutrition company specifically built for hikers and outdoor adventurers. I co-founded OptiVenture alongside my adventure buddy Hirsch back in 2023. There simply wasn't a product on the market that gave outdoorsy folk like you and me a convenient and comprehensive solution to micronutrition on trail. So we spent 2 years alongside a team of nutritionists, dietitians, and supplement scientists and formulated it ourselves. OptiVenture Core, our all-in-one supplement system, is available now, and you can find detailed ingredient breakdowns and information on the science and research behind our products at optiventure.co. There'll be a link in the podcast description, and you can use code LIFEOUTSIDE at checkout to get 10% off. All right, let's get into today's episode. G'day, Jess. Welcome to the Life Outside podcast.
Hi, Cam. Thanks for having me. Super happy to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor to chat with you. Been following your journey, hiking across America and well beyond over the last few months. You're actually one of the most highly requested guests on the Life Outside podcast over the
Oh my
last few weeks
gosh.
since you finished up your vlogs that you're posting on Instagram. Had so many people reach out, so yeah, I listened. I listened to the listeners on this podcast.
That's
We've got her,
amazing.
guys. We've got Jess.
Wow. I'm
So
so
yeah,
honored.
super excited to have you on. You've
Thank
just
you.
walked across America on the Continental Divide Trail, and
hmm
then you, once reaching Canada, you continued on the Great Divide Trail for
hmm
a further 5, 6, 700 miles or something
hmm
along those lines. You've
hmm
walked
hmm
a long, long way.
Yeah.
Give the listeners a bit of context on the journey and the grandeur of it and what it involved.
Yeah. So what I did was I connected the Continental Divide Trail and the Great Divide Trail. The Great Divide Trail is the section in Canada along the Canadian Rockies, and it starts actually at the northern terminus of the Continental Divide Trail. So the Continental Divide Trail goes from Mexico to Canada through New Mexico and Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana. And then once you get to Montana at Glacier National Park, it connects to Waterton Lakes National Park in Canada. And that terminus becomes the southern terminus for the Great Divide Trail. So you can just continue on through there. You just have to give the border patrol their phone call, and they will say, "Okay, great, you're coming here for however many days to go hike," and then you just keep going. And I just thought, what a wonderful opportunity to just extend the CDT up into Canada. And it's so beautiful up there. It just feels like if you like Glacier National Park, you're going to love the Great Divide Trail because it just feels like Glacier National Park extended for another 700 miles. You just go through like so many glaciated mountains in the Rockies, and it's so dramatic and stunning and very raw. And then as you get further and further north, the trail ends up past Jasper, and it just becomes so much more rugged and less maintained and more remote. If you look at a map and you look at BC and Alberta, there's a border provincial divide, and that's basically the Rockies, the divide that you're walking along until you get to the point where it becomes just a straight line up to the north. And what I really loved about the trail connection that I did this year was that it allowed me to walk along the source of the water for like the whole of the US, almost, excluding maybe the source of the Mississippi, but all the headwaters of the major rivers, and then also into Canada, the headwaters of a lot of major rivers there as well. So I felt like I was seeing the source of this water that connected to so many people, and it felt really like almost spiritual in a way, like a spiritual secular pilgrimage along this mountain range. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, that's super special. What gave you the idea of connecting the two trails together? Is it something that people do fairly regularly? I think you were one of the first, or if not the first woman to do this northbound, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, so I think as far as I'm aware, I'm the first woman. I haven't heard of any other woman doing it. It wasn't that I necessarily set out to do that. It was just because I thought, what a great thing to do to be able to connect the two trails. It was actually when I was hiking the Colorado Trail last year, which I heard you might do as well, which is such a great through hike. But the Colorado Trail last year was something that I hiked coming out of my post-trail depression from the PCT. I came out of the PCT, I hiked it in 2023, which was a record snow year in California. And so finishing that hike northbound was so overwhelmingly empowering. And it was a really difficult come down from that. I mean, it just came back and went back to work, and my work had changed a lot when I was gone. I fell into a very serious post-trail depression that then morphed into a real clinical depression at that point by the springtime, I think. And then I was talking to my
Oh,
therapist and to a doctor, and my doctor was like, "You need to take medical leave. You need to stop working and focus on just sleeping and eating and moving and getting outside." And I think a way for you to do that would be to go for another hike because you need to remember who you are, which like props to her because not everybody in the medical system in the US, I think, would say that. I think a lot of people probably would have just
yeah.
said, here's medication and there you go. But she was like, the best thing you can do right now is to go remember who you are. So I went back outside again. I went back and did a part of the PCT that I had missed when I got airlifted out of the Sierra for an injury. And then I also went back to I went and did the Colorado Trail as part of that, just because it was short. And when I was on that trail, I thought, wow, the divide is so beautiful. It's so beautiful here. Like I really felt like I had come home in a way into the mountains. And that's when I thought, okay, yeah, I would like to hike the CDT. And I would like to do it soon. Like, I don't think that if you have a dream, I don't think it makes sense at all to put it off and be like, well, I'll do that in a few years. Like, if you have the dream, do it now, but I was thinking that I felt like when I hiked the PCT, it was my first through hike. So I didn't really know if I could do the PCT, and I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could even last that long in the wilderness and just would I get so bored and want to come back. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. I know you love the PCT too. So. But then when I was thinking about doing the CDT, I was like, I know that I can do a long through hike. Like, sure, the CDT is longer and harder, but I know I can do it at this point, and it wouldn't be an interesting challenge to me. So I thought, okay, well, why not extend it into the Great Divide Trail and do both of those at the same time? And then I started looking for research, other articles that people had written, and there was just really nothing out there about combining the two. Because I wanted to know, okay, if I'm going to connect them, what's the kind of pace I need to do? When do I need to start it? What are the conditions going to be like? Do I have to go through Stone, Colorado, or is there a way to avoid it? And there was just so little information out there. I think in the end, I actually found only I found only one guy initially when I was doing my research online. After I started my hike, I heard of another guy who had done it. The first person that I heard of was Andrew Peanut Glenn, who did it in 2016. And then I also heard of Half Mile Gin, who did it in 2022. And then after my hike, somebody on my blog commented saying, like, oh, by the way, there's this other guy named Justin Trauma Lichter who did it in 2005. So far, all I know of is these three guys plus me. So four people. Yeah.
That's wild. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool to be able to say you were the first or among the first few to do something so epic.
Yeah.
Take me back to the PCT because, like you said, that was one of my best adventures of my life, and
Mhm.
I always love reminiscing. And I also experienced that sort of post child depression. I felt like
Oh,
the
did you?
PCT
Yeah.
became my home last year, and it's interesting
Yeah.
that the doctor you were seeing said that you needed to go back home because that's really what it feels like. It's like you're leaving this place that has just become your life. You're on the trail
Hmm.
for so long.
Yeah.
I want to hear about how the PCT started. Like, have you always been into backpacking? Is your family into the outdoors? What started you
Yeah.
on this journey of through hiking?
Yeah. So I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and we have a very outdoorsy culture there. I mean, we have the beautiful mountains of Washington right in our backyard. I think I lived I grew up 40 minutes from Snoqualmie Pass. So I was very, very close to the mountains, to the Cascades. And there was even when I was growing up in high school, we had a late start on Wednesdays. I don't remember why. It was something for the teachers to have meetings or something, but we would start school at like 10:30 or 11. So my friends and I would go occasionally and go for a hike in the morning and then go to high school, which was so much fun. Much fun, and but also like very different from what I think a lot of other people grew up with. And I think there's a culture too in Washington of like if you come back and you say, "Hey, let's catch up." they'll say, "Great, let's go for a hike." Instead of going to get drinks or get dinner or whatever. That's, I think, the culture in a lot of places, including New York, which has been my adopted
I
home for the
love that.
last 12 years. So I think it's great because we have such amazing nature out there. Why not take advantage of it? But I didn't hear of the PCT when I was living in Washington, but I did have that sort of hiking experience. The the push for me was when I was 18. I was very involved in Girl Scouts when I was growing up, and when I was 18, I did a Girl Scout trip with Outward Bound, and one of the Outward Bound leaders was doing the Appalachian Trail with her dog the following year. And I was like, "Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't know you could walk like that." And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm actually there's other trails. There's a Pacific Crest Trail and there's a Continental Divide Trail. And I remember thinking that's something I want to do. I want to do the PCT because it's my home state of Washington. I think it's such a beautiful landscape all around that area. I think it's really, really difficult to see that much beauty if you wanted to just do them in little trips over the course of your lifetime. It would take a whole lifetime. So I thought, well, eventually I'd like to do
Mm,
that.
yeah.
But I just never got enough confidence, I think, to go out and do it. I thought I had to have more survival skills or more backpacking experience or something. And I think a lot of women are like this, where they're like, "Oh, I just can't go do this right now. I need to be more prepared." And that's how I felt for maybe 10 years or so. I went to school, I went to college, I did my started my career. After I graduated college, I thought maybe this time I'll hike the PCT. And then I thought, no, I'm not ready yet. Like, I don't know enough about backpacking. And then over the course of working, I did a lot more backpacking trips. I went to Patagonia with my sister for a month. I did a solo trip. My first solo backpacking trip was actually in the Tetons on the Teton Crest Trail. And after that, I thought, okay, I can camp alone. This is okay. And also, I did the TMB, the Tour de Mont Blanc, the year after I did the Teton Crest Trail. And then that one, I actually tried to do like 20-mile days. And I was like, okay, I can also do bigger miles. So maybe now I'm ready for the PCT. And then that's how I ended up on the PCT. Also, I think work-wise, I was at a point in my career where I felt like I had enough expertise in my background that I felt like I could step away for a little bit. And my work had a sabbatical kind of program where you could take 6 months off while having, I think, 20% of your pay. And I was like, that's something I definitely want to use to go hike the PCT. And that's how I ended up there.
It's interesting you're talking about now. If you have a dream, just go grab it. Don't delay. And yet it
Yeah,
took you what 10 years to
I
to
know.
hike this dream, the Pacific Crest Trail. There's
Yeah.
definitely a balance there, though, right?
Hmm.
You want to feel like you're ready for something, but sometimes you just never 100% feel ready, and it's just about
Yeah.
taking that step in faith and bravery and doing it
Yeah.
anyway. Where's that balance for you now that you've hiked, some of the longest and most challenging trails in the world? For people that might be listening that are in that place in their lives, they're like, "This is what I want to do. This is a dream of mine, but it's scary.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm ready." Where's that
Yeah.
balance?
Yeah, I 100% hear that, and I think I actually talk about it in some of my videos, and people are gonna say, "Well, how do you remember each day?" But I did all the editing for them, so I remember each day. Day 8, and specifically, I talk about like how, if you have a dream, you have to just go for it because you will never feel ready. You will never feel like you have enough time. You will never feel like you have enough money. You can always have more money and more time. And then I think also on day 145, I talked about this too, where you're never gonna find the space. It's never just gonna like pop up in your life unless something really horrible happens and you're like, well, now I guess I don't have a house, a job or something, and now I guess I'll go through hike. Like it really has to be generally an intentional choice that you make. And I think you probably have this experience too, where like it's very easy to just get sucked into the next thing. I think that we have this idea of like what life is supposed to look like and this is your next step and this is your next step and this is your next step, but that's completely up to you. And I think one of the things that I've learned over the course of my career and life maybe is this idea of making peace with your pace. You don't have to compare yourself to what anybody else is doing at your age. Your life is yours, and if you let yourself make choices based on what other people have done or what you think other people want you to be doing, you're not living your own life and you only get one as far as we know of.
Sure. making peace with your pace. It's very applicable to the trail and to
Yeah.
life a bit more in general.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
yeah, that's super cool. I want to get into your big CDT GDT adventure, but first I want to hear the story of you getting airlifted out of the Sierra Nevada on the Pacific Crest Trail. You had a high snow year in 2023. I've heard plenty of
Mhm.
stories from that year on trail. We had a much more mild year in 2024 where there wasn't too much snow, too much bad weather. We got through relatively unscathed, but getting airlifted out is is pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you guys had your year with fire season in the upper parts of the northern parts of the trail, so it wasn't easy for you either. But yeah, our year was a record snow year. It was the highest snow year California had on record. So it beat out 2017, it beat out 2019. And I remember at that point, I had already signed the contract with my company saying that I was going to be gone for 6 months and I can't take that back. So I was like, well, I guess I'm still doing the PCT this year. And I think what I did was I did a lot of snow prep. Like I already had a lot of skiing background, so I felt comfortable in the snow, but like hiking in it, using an ice axe, all of that, that was definitely new to me. And I was pretty intent on finding a group of people to go into the snow with. That was my goal from the very beginning. I didn't want to be somebody who flipped around. I think flipping is commendable if that's what you have to do for your own safety and skill level, but I think it's really challenging to flip for your motivation. I think it's really hard to stay motivated if you're like just trying to make up miles here and there. I really love in the beauty of through hiking where you start from one place and you end up in another place in this one continuous footpath. And so I wanted to maintain that footpath. And for me, it was also important because I'm from Washington State. I wanted to walk home to Washington State. So I was like, I'm going into the snow no matter what, and I'm going to make it work. So day 10 of my hike, and this is jumping back a little bit, but I'll get to the airlift part. But day 10 of my hike, I was entering the San Jacinto Mountains and I ended up hiking with these guys who they had never met me before. We'd only hiked a couple miles together, but we were getting up into the snow around San Jacinto and I was trying to bushwhack around the snow patches. I was just like trying to stay out of the sun as much as I could. And I stepped on a branch and it broke and impaled my calf, my right calf. And that was a
Oof.
problem. Yeah, because it was quite deep. And I thought I was fine. Like I'm very stubborn. I was like, guys, I'm fine. Like I can keep, look, I'm walking now. I can even run. And my friends were like, no, you need to, they put stair strips on my calf, and then hiked out with me down from Phobos Ranch trailhead down to get a ride into, Idlewild, where I can get into urgent care and get real stitches. So that's how I got my trail name. But then once I met those guys, I was like, okay, these guys, they didn't even know me. They really took care of me when I needed help. And these are the guys that I want to go into this year with. But by that point, I had to stay off trail for I think they originally said 10 days. It was eventually 8 days. But 8 days is uh, eternity when you are hiking. Like to be taking 8 zeros in a row, I was getting so restless. I was like, my friends are leaving, like they're now like 100, 200 miles ahead of me, and I have to catch back up to them in order to enter this year with them. So I went back into the trail with the stitches still in my leg because they got infected. And the doctor said, we need you to keep the stitches in. And I said, well, I really have to go. And he was like, well, here's my personal phone number and here is a suture removal kit. Like, why don't you just keep texting me photos of how it looks? And then when I say to take it out, cut them out yourself. And I was like, okay, sounds good. So I started hiking again. I met a couple other guys. One of them was actually from Australia. He's from Tasmania, and he was a trained paramedic, which is super useful for me because then I had him there when I was cutting out my stitches. But then these guys that I met sort of on this trail, I was like, look, I'm trying to catch up to my old Sierra team, or these other guys that I would like to make my Sierra team. And so these guys and I, we ended up working really hard to catch back up to the guys that had helped me out with my first set of stitches, and that is the team that I eventually entered this year with. So it was a team of 6 guys and me. I was definitely the shortest of this group, and I was also the only woman in the group. So I think I had this insecurity already around like, am I good enough to be in this group? And I remember we had because in my work previously, when I was working in corporate America, I worked in a lot of like facilitation, group dynamics, and collaboration kind of fields. And so I had everyone sit down at Kennedy Meadow South. I would like you all to tell me, what are your hopes and fears about this? Like, what are you worried about? What are you excited about for going into this year? I want to know, like, what are the things that are on your mind? And I think this was actually so useful because we got to hear from everybody One guy was like, I'm really scared of the river crossings. And it's good for us to know that as a group. And the thing that I said was, I'm scared that I won't be able to keep up, because I'm definitely the shortest. My legs are the smallest. If you, legs are the smallest, legs are the shortest. And if you think about like the number of steps that you have to take, I have to take many more. And each step that you take in the snow is just so much more energy consuming and hard. So I was like, I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the river crossings. I'm shorter, so the water is going to be higher in my body. And they were like, it's okay. Like we want you in our team. Then we go in. We did the first leg for us, which was to Bishop. We did, I think, exiting out of Kearsarge Pass. We entered back into Kearsarge Pass. We did Glen Pass, and then we were going towards Pinchot
Yep.
Pass. And there's that suspension bridge on the PCT north of Glen Pass, and then there is like this part where you're going up towards like a waterfall on rocks. It's quite a lot of water going on down this like very flat, rocky terrain. And that section for us, I mean, it was
Yes.
all
Yep.
snow for us. That exact spot. Yeah. It was basically all snow for us through north of Kennedy Meadows. Except that at that point there was a little bit of dirt. And so my team had been like taking off microspikes, putting back microspikes back on, and I think they were all taking off microspikes. And because I'm shorter, I was walking sort of behind. I was a little bit slower. And so when I got there, they were already all with their microspikes off. And I was like, oh, don't worry, don't wait for me. Like it's just dirt. I'll be fine. So I took up my micro spikes and then I started, and so they were all ahead of me at this point, and I got to these places where it's just water running across the trail. You know how it is with snow melt. It's just like so much water. And I was like, oh, I really don't want to have to take off my shoes and ford this right now. Like they're already ahead of me. So what I did, but it was just too far for me to like step over, and there wasn't enough snow to use as a snow bridge. So I levered myself over with my poles, and where I landed was next to a rock, and I post holed right through and hit my knee against the sharp edge of this rock with all of my weight of my pack. I mean, we had just gotten in there, so all of my pack was still quite heavily loaded. And I just hit the rock edge, and it opened up a little dime-sized hole right above my kneecap. And once I saw that, I was like, oh no, yeah. Because it just looked like dark and bloody and
Oh.
yeah, and I had already seen my other calf, and I know how long that took to heal. So I was like, there's no way that I can walk on this. But luckily, so one guy noticed that I was gone for quite some time, and he came back. He actually found me within 8 minutes, I think. And I was crying, obviously. I wasn't crying because I hurt. I was crying because I was like, oh my God, is this the end of my Sierra hike? Like, am I gonna
Yeah.
have to just wait for another 10 days and then I'm gonna lose them? And he came back, he saw me, he ran to get the others, and he was like blowing his whistle, like yelling, like medic. And he found my paramedic friend, and then he also sent another guy to go get the first guy who was like even more ahead. They all came back and waited with me while we called the helicopter. The paramedic stereo strip like cleaned it, put stereo strips on it, but he was like, you can't walk on this. You need to get out. It's really bad if you
Wow.
don't have stitches, and if you get an infection here at a joint, it's really not good. So that's when I got airlifted.
Jeez. You're
Yeah.
a badass for starters. That is that is ridiculous. I'm not
Thank
like
you.
a huge trail name guy. It's not really a big thing in Australia,
Yeah.
but Stitch. That's like the best trail name story I've probably ever heard, and bloody well earned.
Thank
It's
you.
crazy hearing
Bloody
about
indeed.
2023 in the Sierra, because the we didn't have barely any snow. Like most of the trail was dirt and
Oh,
super
that's gotta be
easy to
so nice.
walk, and it's just like a whole different experience. And that's the
It
beauty of
is.
trails like the PCT, is that it can be so different each year. Like you said, we
Hmm.
had the fires in
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
This year, by all accounts, it was pretty smooth going with both the snow
Oh,
and the
good.
fires.
Oh, wow.
And it
Great.
makes it makes the idea of like repeating the trail like super exciting, because it's going to be a different experience. There's going to be different people. There's going to
Yeah.
be different conditions and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Were you able to get back on trail at the same spot, or how did that end up working out?
Yeah, so I got airlifted out, and then I was brought out by the Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park Rangers to their headquarters, which is on the western side of the Sierra, which sucked because I had to get back on the eastern side of the Sierra in order to re-enter. And I went to urgent care, I went to the emergency room, I guess, and they were like, actually, this one, I think you can maybe get back on trail in 5 days. I was like, oh, fantastic, because 5 days actually could maybe work. Like, my team is going to be going up. They were doing Pincher Pass the next day, then Mather Pass the following day, and then they would have to exit out of the Bishop Pass because at that point our detour around this bridge that was down involved getting out at Bishop Pass. So I was like, okay, perfect. That's already 3 days because we can only do one pass a day in the snow like that. When it's so slushy in the afternoon, you can only do one pass in the morning. So 3 days, and then they were going to take a zero. And then the fifth day, so because everything was closed, like all the roads were closed because of all the snow, so we were only able to get up to a certain point in the road, and we would have had to start in the night to get up the snow, up Paiute Pass when the snow was still good. So they were going to plan to camp there at the trailhead and then like do the road walk in and then just camp at the trailhead and then the next day go up in the snow next in the night or I guess yeah in the middle of the night start up in the snow to Paiute Pass. I was like, okay, I actually think that 5 days is good enough. So I ended up staying in LA for a couple of days. I got a rental car and I got a bunch of trail magic for my friends, which was so fun. And because I knew what they all like to eat, I went to Trader Joe's, got a bunch of stuff, drove up, met them at the pass that they exited out of. We zeroed together, and then I went back in, yeah, with stitches in my knee, with stitches in my yeah, stitches in my left knee. And luckily, so Rooster, the paramedic, the Aussie paramedic, was always going to only do a section of the trail, so he left, and then he was replaced by Lotto, who was a French nurse, and fantastic timing for me. I always hiked with medical personnel. Lotto cut out my stitches for me just by a lake somewhere in the next section. Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
It's funny that I know a lot of Tasmanian paramedics. It's
Oh, really?
maybe
Interesting.
it's just something about Tassie paramedics, and they also always spend a lot of time outside down there.
Yeah.
If you ever come to
Yeah, they do.
Australia, Tassie's the place to go. It's just
Yeah.
incredible hiking.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, that's a crazy PCT experience. That
Yeah.
first calf issue you had on San Jacinto
Hmm.
reminded me of one of my first snow experiences in the Australian Alps, which was a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
I had not really hiked on snow before, and I was wearing
Hmm.
crampons for the first time in my
Oh,
life.
yeah.
And me and my
Yeah.
mate Lockie decided to go out on a little expedition by ourselves, and I did the
Yeah.
classic post hole with the left foot and my right foot. The front crampons impaled my left calf,
Oh.
and
Oh.
I don't think I've ever shared that publicly before, but that was
Yeah.
about yeah probably a good inch of a crampon directly into my calf
Yeah.
muscle, and
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I literally
Yeah.
instantly just thought of that when you were telling the Jacinto story.
Yeah.
It's not
But I don't
not
know if you had
particularly
this
fun.
experience when you were having your injury, but I didn't even feel the pain really. I could tell that something had happened, but I think because I'd been in the snow, my ankle and calf was already sort of numbed by the snow. So when I looked down, I was like, oh, that's actually quite deep.
Yep. Yeah, and you go into shock a little bit as well. You're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that just happened.
Yeah,
Am I done
exactly.
here, or like,
Yeah.
what's next?"
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Crazy. What
Yeah.
was it
Yeah.
like finishing the Pacific Crest Trail? Your first
Oh
like
my gosh.
proper long distance through hike.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, I think getting to that point, so we had a lot of fire detours towards the end of our hike as well in Washington. We had, I think, three detours, and one of them involved this like detour that added 70 miles around Stehekin. Super
Wow.
overgrown, and I think you also did a lot of overgrown trails in that area. But I remember, and then it was also like raining the whole week, and there was towards the end of the trail, I was getting pretty lazy with my setup. I set up my tarp on the side of this road on the detour, and in road, it's really difficult to get your stakes nailed in well enough. But I also didn't like bother to go look for rocks to weigh down my stakes. So I just was like, whatever, it's fine. And then the stake came out, the tarp came loose, and the bottom half of my sleeping bag just got totally soaked. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night thinking, is this worth it to fix it? No, it's not. So I just slept like that. So towards that end of that trail, I was just so tired and ready to be done. And I was having these feelings of like, am I even going to feel anything when I get to the end? Like, what if I just get there and I just have no emotions about it? Like, what if nothing changes? Like, I- I just had this fear. I think a lot of people also have this where they're like, what happens when I finish this dream that I've
Totally.
had? And now this is over. It's like you just feel and I also was hiking with two guys that I've been hiking with since the Sierra. And so it was very clear to me that like when we get there, we're gonna all split. This is the end of our time together. And it was really sad because they became like my family. Like how it is on trail. Like it's like that time is gone.
Hmm.
So I was really anxious about the finish. And then when I got there, I just was crying and crying, and I didn't even know if I was crying because I was happy or sad or proud or maybe everything, all of it together. Yeah, it was really emotional. And but I don't think that it really hit me until all of my Sierra team members finished. So I was the first of my Sierra team member team to group to finish at the PCT terminus. And then as my friends kept coming through, because I was in Washington, so I saw them come through and finish. And once all of my team members had finished, I was like, okay, now I'm done. I feel like all the parts of my heart that were on trail are now finally off of the trail. And I'm like, now I've completed the PCT. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much.
Hmm.
Fast forward a couple of years, the CDT, you were starting, I believe, a bit earlier than most, right? I'm assuming you were anticipating a lot of solo time on trail for that
Yeah.
reason, and also because you were planning to walk pretty damn fast to sort of make weather windows and get to Canada and still have, enough time, like another month to hike the GDT.
Hmm.
You'd obviously had an amazing time on the PCT with your trail family. What was your sort of mindset going into the CDT, knowing that it was going to be like a bit more of a solo adventure?
Yeah. I think I heard you talk about this too, where you walk into the PCT thinking I'm gonna hike it solo and then you end up not hiking it solo. I walked into the PCT thinking like I'm gonna do this whole thing solo as well. Like I'm very independent and I was like, there's no way that I even want to be around somebody for 3, 4, 5 months. And that was totally different for me on the PCT. I was like, actually, it's really nice. So that was surprising for me on the PCT. So when I did the Colorado Trail, I did it completely alone. I also did the Colorado Trail. I mean, it was a lot of healing for me personally too, like out of coming out of depression. I didn't really want to be around people. I had a lot going on in my own head, and I also would repeatedly like pop off of the Colorado Trail because I did all the 14ers along the way. I ended up doing 27 14ers over the course of my
Whoa.
month in Colorado. Yeah, so I was constantly like gone and then coming back. So I wasn't really hiking around anybody on the Colorado Trail either. That is actually how I ended up listening to birds on trail, was because I was so alone the whole time. Also on the Colorado Trail, the headphone jack of my phone stopped working to the point where I couldn't even charge my phone. I had to use a wireless charger. So I didn't have any music. I had nothing on the Colorado Trail. And so I really got used to like, okay, what is it like to just be in your own head and be bored and just be
Mm.
on trail? And yeah, that was really good practice, I think. So I knew I could do it. But it is sad to go from like having people around you to just being like by yourself and having to deal with everything yourself. One thing that's really nice about being with other people is if you forget something or you mess something up, then you have this like backup of other people who can share something with you or whatever, or even just give you different food to eat for a little bit more variety. So I think that was something that I knew I would be going into this trail with. I knew that I was going to be doing this trail, both trails, at a pace that was going to be faster than a lot of people. It wasn't crazy fast, I don't think, but it was definitely faster than you would normally just do if you were just kind of casually hiking the trail. I actually didn't start early on the CDT. I started maybe in the middle of the people who started. I started April 21st,
Hmm.
and I think people started from the beginning of April. So I actually had like two bubbles of northbound hikers to go through. So I think I was hiking around people for at least the first week up until, so I hit my first bubble about day 14, day 12, I think, day 14, around there, and then around Pie Town, New Mexico. And then I hit another bubble at Chama, New Mexico, which was the end of New Mexico for me. And then once we got into Colorado, most people did like a different road walk or flipped or waited it out or went for a road trip in the Grand Canyon to wait out the snow. So by that point, I was alone. I did meet up with Slide, who is hiking the Border to Border Calendar Year Triple Crown this year. He's actually still out there.
Yep.
He's currently approaching Canada on the International Appalachian Trail. But he was
Wow.
entering Colorado and he was like, I want to do the red line. I was like, I want to do the red line as well. And he was like, well, we should hike it together. And I was like, no, no, I don't think we should hike it together. I think you should go ahead because you clearly have a much faster timeline. And he's like, I don't think I'm that much faster. So we ended up hiking the San Juans together for 2 weeks. And then the rest of the whole trail and the CT, I was alone. So beyond that, I was just like way ahead of everybody else. I think people were like 3, 4 weeks behind me because of Colorado. And then I think going up into the GDT in Canada, most people had started in like late July, around that time, and we're hiking in primarily August. And so I was starting quite late on the Great Divide Trail, and I never really saw any other hikers on the Great Divide Trail. Yeah, it's different for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you can remember specific days of this trip so well, and I think a big part of that is because you were vlogging this whole experience, and I tell people
Yeah.
that all the time. It's like
Yeah.
it's such a great way to just immortalize every day on trail, and you film all these little moments, and you can just go back and you can recall how that whole day unfolded just by these little clips and this little voiceover that you made.
Yeah.
Were you vlogging before, like on the PCT on the Colorado Trail at all, or was this like a new thing for you on the Continental Divide Trail?
Yeah, this was new for me. I on the PCT, I just did Instagram stories, but one thing I noticed with Instagram stories was that I was spending hours in town just posting because you can't post stories or you can't prepare them in advance. So I was posting them for like several hours in town, and I felt like it was taking up time from my rest time in town. And then on the Colorado Trail, I posted nothing because that was for my own healing. I didn't feel comfortable.
Yep.
Like, I don't like doing my processing publicly. I would rather do the processing privately and then share afterwards how it felt. And so I didn't do anything for the Colorado Trail at all. And then on this trail, I thought, you know what? I do actually want to document it publicly because I do want people to know. Because there was nothing out there for me when I was doing research on what is it like to hike these two trails together. And I also knew a lot of hikers who were interested in doing it. They were like, I want to do it, but it just seems like logistically really challenging with permits, et cetera. And I was like, okay, yeah, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to record it really well and say, this is how you do it if I do it. And how it happened with the vlog. So I originally signed up to blog with the Trek. I'm a very prolific journaler. I did a lot of journaling on the PCT. I actually hand wrote journal most of the time, and then I ended up switching to typing. But then I went back and copied all of what I had typed out into a handwritten journal because I do really like that long form. So I thought, okay, I'll just do the same journaling practice that I did before, but this time I'll publish it onto the blog. And then I thought, you know what, maybe some people who find the blog will eventually go to my Instagram. I should probably do like a little intro there about who I am, what is this about. And I had some footage when I was packing all my food. I took some time lapses of me like packing my food from the repackaging it from the original packaging down into Ziplocs. I thought that was a really cool visual. I sent it to my hiking partners and said like, wow, this is so cool. And then I decided, you know what, I have enough footage here, I think, to make a video out of my hike prep. So I made a hike prep video first, and I thought, okay, first I need to introduce what am I even doing here. So then I made a whole video about like my trail name story and how did I even get here, and then I'm going to do this trail this year. And then I thought, you know what, people also love to hear about gear. And I could send my litter pack, but people that I know in my own friend circle, they don't hike. They don't know what that gear looks like. So I just decided, okay, I'm going
Yeah.
to show how I pack it into my pack. Those three videos were the only ones that I thought I was going to make. And then I spent the week before my trail, before starting the hike, at a meditation center in Colorado. I'm planning to work there actually next summer. So I wanted to go see it before I left on this trail and committed to being there. So I went to visit for a week, and as I was there, I was like, you know, I could make a day zero video. Like, I'm going to go start this thing now. So I made that video, and then I thought I could make a day one video, and then I could make a day two video. And then I thought, well, I think this is okay. I think I can do this. And I think initially it wasn't that much time because I didn't have that much to say and I didn't have that much footage. And I also didn't know how to edit. So it was actually very fast and I could do it just the same day and be done and then just post it when I was in town or had service. Then I realized once I got more into it, I was like, oh, I'm saying a lot actually. And now this is getting to be quite tough and I'm getting behind a little bit. And then in Colorado, when I was hiking the slide, I just had no way to edit because it was a bit rude for me to be editing while we were sitting there taking a break. And also, I was too tired to edit at night. And then I previously had been doing a lot of editing while I was walking and hiking, and I just could not do that in the snow. So then I got behind, and people actually messaged me, I think after I hadn't posted for 5 days. They were like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, oh, shoot, people are actually following this and want to see what I'm doing. So then I thought, okay, now I have a
Yeah.
responsibility, I think, to put that out there. So that's how it sort of started.
The accidental vlogger.
Yeah.
That's incredible how you just sort of fell into it. I got to say, you're a natural at it. You're an incredible
Oh, thank you.
storyteller, and
Thank you.
I was going back and looking through a few of your vlogs just before we jumped on, and just you're dropping these just like nuggets of wisdom and these philosophical quotable moments constantly, and it was really enjoyable to follow the journey. And there's a
Thank
reason
you.
people were wondering if you died after 5 days and missing the vlog. I got that a bit on the Pacific Crest Trail as well. If there was a
Oh
couple of
yeah.
days where I didn't post because I was deep in the Sierra or whatever it was,
Yeah,
you know, you
right.
come back to all these DMs like, "Oh, he's died. He's gone. He's all this kind of stuff." Which is
Yeah.
just sort of comes with it, I guess. But you
Yeah.
know,
It's crazy though.
obviously you enjoyed it. You know,
Yeah, I think I remember feeling like people weren't quite understanding the challenge of actually, I mean, because it's a lot of work to have that much footage, to have them carry that much battery power to be able to take that much footage, to keep clearing enough storage on your phone to be able to have that much footage, to back up all the footage when you're in town, when you have enough Wi-Fi cell service to be able to back it all up, because you don't want to lose them before you delete them. And then the actual editing process, and I know you use CapCut as well, and some of the things that I use on CapCut can only be done on with internet, such as like adding the captions, auto captions, and also adding the music if I wanted to add that in. So all of that can only be done once I'm in town and have cell service. And so and especially on the CDT, like you're not in cell service that often. And so I ended up having to put a delay on the videos just for my safety, but also for the fact that I could actually bulk edit some things in town and then publish it out and schedule them. Yeah. It's hard though. It's so hard. I don't know how. I remember when I was watching your videos, I was like, I don't know how you do it. And then when I was doing it, I was like, gosh, I don't know how to do this.
yeah, I don't know how I was doing it either, and it's great to talk to someone who also has gone through the same struggle because it's harder than it looks to edit. It might look like we're just putting a little video together, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of effort involved.
Yeah.
You were vlogging on the trek, daily vlogging on Instagram for
Yeah.
153 days total,
Yeah.
while averaging crazy mileage. It's very impressive.
Thank
How
you.
did you keep up with all that? Did you have like a
Um,
process each day to kind of like get everything done?
Yeah, and I've listened to enough of your podcasts and talking to know that I think we have a very similar process in that like there are some things that I have to do that day. Otherwise, it will just be much less efficient if I do it later on, such as importing all the clips from that day and writing the script for that day. I have to do it that day. Otherwise, it's stale if I do it like 2 days from now. And then what I ended up doing towards the end was I would record the audio like in bulk whenever I found a quiet place somewhere on trail without out of the wind and without a lot of birds. And then I would just bulk record like a bunch of audio and then import those. And then I would cut them as I was walking. Because audio, you don't have to necessarily look at your screen. So I would just be able to just like listen and be like, okay, let's cut that part out. Let's add this one in. Um, and then also on the CDT, especially, there were a lot of road walks on the sides of highways or just dirt roads. And so on those walks, especially, I would be doing a lot of bulk editing. Um, and that helped with and helped cut a little bit of the boredom and then also so I was constantly feeling behind, but yeah, those are the things that's how I managed it. And then I don't think that you have this kind of resource, but I had my brother, so I was posting on Instagram and TikTok, I don't even use TikTok, so I didn't even know how to post on TikTok. And a bunch of the videos that I posted on TikTok, I didn't realize you have to like specifically turn up the sound. So my videos are posted without any sound, and my brother was like, "Let me do it. Like, I'll just post your TikToks." And I was like, "Can you also post the Instagram too?" Because when you post to Instagram, you have to like have Instagram open while it's uploading, and it's so slow and it takes a ton of battery while you're just sitting there with one bar waiting for it to upload. So I was like, yeah, if I could just text you these videos, that would be way easier for me. And he posted all of them for me with the caption that I texted him. So that was great. But then the videos had to be under 2 minutes because if it's over 2 minutes, then I have to upload it to Google Drive for me to be able to get it like at a high enough quality to be able to post it. So there was all of those complications that I don't think people saw because all of that uploading takes time and service and battery. And then also I had to talk so fast. I wrote a lot in my script, and then I would have to talk really, really fast to be able to cut it to 2 minutes or whatever time frame I was trying to go for. So that was really difficult. And that's also part of why I started speaking more, less and less about like what I was doing each day on trail and more about like what I was thinking about on trail. Because if I wrote about that instead of my script, I didn't have to cut necessarily to make everything fit and line up so that if I said, oh, I took a drink of water, that the video also shows me drinking water. If I'm just talking about what I'm thinking about, then you don't have to line up all the clips, and that helped with my editing time a little bit. Yeah.
That was one of the great things about your vlogs, especially the towards the end, was you were just sharing your thoughts and what was going through your mind whilst walking each day. You would share like little conversations you had with passerbys or strangers, and those kinds of things you just don't see, especially people that don't through hike. It's just this kind of whole new world for people, which is really cool. I love
Hmm.
I love that you were editing whilst walking at times. That's that's if you know, you know. That's something that daily vloggers are just kind of forced to do whilst through hiking because it's the only time possible it's possible to do it, and that's a
Yeah,
very specific skill set in and of itself. Walking
yeah,
and editing, I would do walking and voiceovering on the PCC sometimes when the trail was clear enough, and
yeah,
it's lucky that we love it. For me, it
yeah.
doesn't really take too much away from the experience. It adds
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
much to it.
Yeah.
What's that like for you? Do you think vlogging added a lot to it, or did it take away in parts? Was it
Yeah.
a bit of give and take?
I think it was bit and give and take. I think that initially, I mean, the biggest benefit for me is I get to watch my own videos back again, and I watch them a lot. Like I remember you saying on one of your podcasts that like half the views on your videos are probably just you, and I was like, I agree. I kept all of my own videos offline so I could watch them when I was hiking, and I would just play them like and just listen to them while I was walking. Particularly like some of the ones that I had talked about motivation, like day 22. I remember listening to that specifically at the end of the trail for me and the Great Divide Trail. I was like, I want to go back to day 22 and I just played it over and over and over again, listening to my own words because I really needed my own words at that moment. And I think that it's really valuable to go back and see like who you were at on each of those days, and you really see like your shift yourself as you are hiking, who you were at the beginning, and even just in my own editing quality. Like when I go back and watch some of the early videos that I made, I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't know if I can watch that back because I just cringe at some of the editing that I did. But
Yeah,
like the growth that you experience on that trail is just on any trail is phenomenal and really powerful and such a gift to yourself. I think the other positives too was like with a bigger social media presence. I feel like I had a lot more support on trail, people donating, but also people offering rides or trail magic and this way or that way. I actually got overwhelmed in the beginning because there were so many people coming in with like, oh, if you want help here, which was so nice, but I was like, I can't even keep track of all of these people anymore. And I think I sent them to my friend Jenna, who did all my resupply. I was like, can you just put this in a sheet somewhere because I'm getting lost. And so I think handling like the influx of attention and messaging and just so many more voices constantly, which I think is really difficult to manage. And then a lot of people's opinions. People have so many opinions about how I should be hiking, what gear I should be using, if I was doing this or that wrong. And it was really difficult. I have a pretty strong sense of self already, but it's difficult when there's like that many people talking to you all the time. I remember also towards the end, especially when I started having my posts be a little bit more political, so to speak. Like I brought my opinion into a lot of and my own experiences as opposed to just like the landscape and the scenery. And some people had some reactions to what I shared and were very vocal about them in my DMs and also in my comments. There were also people who were like, are you just doing this for clout? Like, are you just hiking this because you want people to follow you and whatever? And that really bothered me because um, that was absolutely not what I was trying to be out there doing. I didn't necessarily set out looking for like, where can I be the first woman to do something? Or, whatever that mindset that they thought I was doing this for is. And I think people have a pretty negative view of like influencer culture where it's like very validation focused and attention focused. But if
totally.
you're a hiking influencer, you are out there in the rain. You don't you don't feel like a celebrity of any kind out there. So I think that was hard for me to take, and I ended up like using my videos as a way to respond to that, like day 98, for example, or day 142. I think in those videos I was trying to convey like the challenge of trying to be yourself and do this thing for yourself in the face of like everybody else also being there and being part of that journey. And I don't know if you had this same experience, but on the CDT and GDT, it's so remote, and then you get into town and you suddenly have cell service, and then you see like so many comments, and my page was also growing a lot. So there's like so many more followers. It's just like a really loud place online. So that was hard.
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to it, but you mentioned it there. The biggest thing for me is that it's like the most incredible gift you can give to yourself and your future self to be able to
Hmm.
relive these experiences which will end up being, some of the most impactful and memorable of our lives.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
encourage everyone to record their through hikes, or their sort of big adventures. And even if you don't post it online, which, I know most people are not interested in that whatsoever, just record it for yourself and have these things
Hmm.
to look back on. Talk to the camera a bit when something interesting happens, or at the very
Yeah,
least, write a journal on the notes app of your phone.
yeah,
Because you
totally.
do forget the little things. You're out there for so long and so much happens, but if you've got this sort of like little video log, or this journal that you've tracked some of the more significant moments each and every day, it's a
Hmm.
super special thing to look back on. And like, I
Hmm.
just can't wait to show my kids one day the time that I walked across America on the PCT, and I can literally show them every single day, and that is the coolest thing. But
Hmm. Yeah,
as you say, posting stuff online publicly, especially when a few people start following along, it's going to bring negativity and a whole lot of positivity as well. And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
of
sort of,
course. Yeah,
that's just part of the game, I guess, on social media these
yeah.
days. I got to say, the vlog where you finished the CDT and you reached the Canadian border. I think it was day 114 or
14.
115 or
Wow, good
something.
memory. Yeah.
Has to be, yeah, that has to be probably my favorite vlog that I've ever seen anyone make, from a through
Oh,
hike.
wow.
It's incredibly emotional, special, and after following you for many months, it was unreal.
Thank
It
you.
was your birthday that day, and like so much
Yeah.
happened, and you just
Yeah.
crossed into this new trail. And I encourage anyone listening to go back, if you haven't already, and watch, Jess's vlogs, and don't skip to day 114, but start from the beginning and go through it all, because it really is an incredible journey.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear about some of your highlights of this experience. You're out there for 153 days. It's a long, long time, but I'm sure there were
Yeah.
some moments, some landscapes, some people that really stood out to you.
Yeah, so day 114 definitely stands out because it was the day that I got to the CDT terminus, northern terminus, and started the GDT. And that was emotional for me because it was my 30th birthday. I didn't actually plan for that. I had actually planned to be at the northern terminus the day before and start, just because my birthday is like early August. That was the right time to start the GDT. But the way that the glacier permits turned out in Glacier National Park, I was a day late. And so I think it worked out actually better. It was so emotional for me to be there on my birthday. But that was really emotional for me because I hadn't really believed that, I mean, I was trying to, obviously, but I hadn't really believed that I could actually do the CDT at that kind of a pace. It's a much harder trail than the PCT, conditions wise, terrain wise, navigationally. So the tread is also not as clear. It's a lot steeper in some places, not nearly as well graded as a PCT. So I think I was worried about, like, can I even do this pace? 'Cause I had to do a much faster pace than I had ever done on the PCT. And when I got to the CDT terminus, I was like, okay, I'm actually on time somehow, and I have time now to do the GDT. And not only that, I actually feel great. And I think I would love to talk about this, but I think nutrition played a big part of that on my CDC hike, and like just mentality, all of that played a big part in how I was able to manage even higher mileage at a higher pace with challenging conditions and still make it on time. But so that was really emotional for me. That was definitely a big high. I think going back though from through the southern part of the CDT, I think in Colorado in the San Juans, going and doing that with slide and navigating that kind of terrain was really validating for me because I felt like I had learned a lot of skills from the Sierra in the 2023 high snow year, and I was able to reapply those skill sets in the San Juans and even teach him a couple things about how to hike in snow like that. So that was really a rewarding time for me. I think it was a big highlight. It was also the San Juans were part of the Colorado, it overlaps with the Colorado Trail. And because I felt so strongly about the Colorado Trail and what it had done for me emotionally and for my mental health, I felt really proud to be able to be back on that section of trail, really meaningful. I think the day 42, I think it was, where I glissaded down Lake Ann Pass. It was like the most beautiful glissade of my life. It was scary because it was so fast, but also really, really a smooth glissade. That was definitely a highlight, I would say. I think the Wind River Range in Wyoming was so stunning. I, on a whim, sort of did the Andrew Skirka high route through the Wind River Range, and that was incredible. Highly recommend anybody who has a skill set to be able to do that section. because it is just stunning. I mean, it's very, very challenging. Definitely the hardest physical challenge that I did on the CDT and GDT together, but it was so rewarding in terms of the views and the fact that there was nobody else in there. I mean, I was the only tracks in the snow at that point. I was in there in early July, and it was just so stunning in there, nobody in there. It felt totally pristine, and you are walking off trail, so it just feels like you're just surrounded by nature. There's not even a boundary of the trail to make you feel like you're separate from nature. That was really beautiful. I think the days that I had on the high routes in Wyoming were so beautiful, like on the Teton, in the Tetons Range and in the Gravanta Range. I think another highlight probably would have been Glacier National Park, because I was there around the time of the end of my 20s, and I felt so reflective and emotional in that section. I had also some amazing trail magic on the CDT. Through Wyoming, I took 3 showers in Wyoming. One was just south of the border, north of Steamboat. One was in Lander, Wyoming, and one was in Jackson, Wyoming. And all 3 showers were at the same couple's properties. Like they had a property in north of Steamboat, they have
Wow.
a property in Lander, and they have a property in Jackson. And I just walked from house to house to house of theirs. And that was amazing. Yeah, I mean, I could list out so many trail magic experiences that were just amazing, but there are so many. I actually counted back like the number of people that I knew of name by name that had helped me on the trail, and it was 88 people. So it's a lot of
Wow.
people. Yeah.
I was just going to say the generosity of people on US through hiking trails. It blew my mind on the PCT, and the stories I
Yeah.
hear from the AT and CDT as well is
Yeah.
it's unreal, the culture of hiking over there and the people that live
Yeah.
along these trails and their willingness to help out people. It's just so cool.
Yeah, it is amazing. People will just bend over backwards to help you out, and yeah, I did a lot of road walking, and you get stopped all the time. People like, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" And it was super nice. Just nice to even have people like stop and acknowledge you while you're walking on the side of the highway. But yeah, and then on the Great Divide Trail, I think a lot of the most magical experiences I had were all in the last week. Like I saw the Northern Lights, which was amazing. That was day 148. I talked to some moose hunters that really buoyed me at a time that I really, really needed it. I was so close to the end of the GDT. I was so ready to be done. Like physically, I felt totally fine. Still, I didn't have any pain or injuries or any issues. I didn't even feel tired, but because I was sleeping quite a lot and not hiking that much during the day. I was only doing, I think, 12 hours of hiking and only a little bit more than 20 something miles. So I was pretty well rested, but my issue was the terrain was so slow. It was like a lot of willow whacking and pushing willows out of the way, and overgrown trail and a lot of fording and a lot of mud and really, really slow. So I couldn't even do more than I think 2 miles an hour in a lot of places, or maybe 2.5 miles an hour. And normally I can do like three, 3.5. So that was hard. And I was so close to the end, it would be like 100 miles from the end, but I was like, I know that's going to take me like 4 days instead of three, which is hard when you're that close to the end. And then also day 145, I was getting close to this area that's very popular called Mount Robson. It's the highest peak in British Columbia and the Canadian Rockies, and it's very popular there. So I thought, okay, I was running low on battery because of editing videos. And so I thought, okay, I don't think I have enough to get to the end of this trail. I think I'll like go out on this side trail and try to find some campers who can maybe lend me some battery. I ended up running into these guys who were working on constructing a backcountry hut there for the Alpine Club of Canada. And they were like, well, we got a generator. You can just plug it in. And then you can go hike for a couple hours and come back.
Sweet.
And I was like, oh, fantastic. This is so amazing. Like, this is exactly what I needed. I went out and hiked, and it was a beautiful day. And then I came back and they were like, do you want some dinner? I was like, oh my God, what is my life right now? And they're like, you can just camp here with us. I was like, this is amazing. So that was just an amazing thing, because I was thinking when I exited out that way, there was a ton of smoke. I didn't even think it'd be worth it to just do the side trip at all. I was thinking, okay, if I can't find anybody who can lend me some battery, I will just walk another 10 miles and descend all the way down to the highway to the visitor center where I can plug my phone in and Power Banks in, and then maybe I won't even have enough food to come back up. I won't have enough food for that climb back ups and then all the way to the end. So I guess if I did that, I would have to buy food at the visitor center, or like beg for food off of people in the parking lot or something. I don't know. And maybe I won't even have the motivation to leave, go back up again. Maybe I'll just be like, this is the end of my hike, you know? So the fact that they were there stopping me from doing that was pretty miraculous, I thought. And then day 147, I went down again to do another resupply at Blueberry Lake Trailhead, which you have to climb down, I think, 4.5 miles and descend 3,000 feet of elevation. So I don't know exactly what that would be in kilometers. I think it's about three, no, I don't know. I don't know how many kilometers. Maybe I don't know. But it's a thousand meters of elevation lost in that time. I was like, I don't want to climb back up this. I'm gonna have to do it in the dark. I was thinking if I get down there and I see a car, maybe I'll just ask them to take me back to town. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And when I got down there, I got my food, I was repackaging it, and these moose hunters drove by and they were camping there for the night. And I talked to them and we talked about like endurance sports. And I was telling them that biologically women are better suited for like the longer and harder something is, the better women do because of our biology. We hold on to our fat, like our bodies are meant to survive because we have to survive to carry on the species. And being hunters, they were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, you only need really 10% male to keep the species going. And that's why when they are out hunting, they hunt the males, they don't hunt the females. And so for them to like agree with me and make a joke about it, I was like, wow, what a great day, you know? And when went back up the
Cool.
climb, 1,000 meters in the dark, I was like so happy. I didn't even notice that it was, 23% grade for however many miles. Yeah. And then, oh my gosh, my last day, I saw a family of caribou, and that was also so magical for me because I had never seen caribou before. It just felt so serendipitous on my last day. Yeah, just so many things like that.
This is why we through hike. I mean, you could talk all day long with the biggest smile on your face about all of
Yeah,
these little individual moments on trail.
yeah,
And through hiking is like the one of the hardest things you could do. I'm sure this trip was, challenging in so many ways, but a month removed from the trail now, you can do nothing but smile when talking about it. Uh,
yeah.
everyone, everyone needs to through hike once in their life.
I
That's my
know.
belief. One
I
of my
agree.
favorite moments, watching you on trail was your brief crossover with Lucy Barnard,
Oh
Barnard
yeah,
Tangles
you
and
talked to her.
Tail,
I remember. Yeah.
which I was hoping would happen. Yeah, I had Lucy on the podcast very early in the show. Long-time listeners may remember. I think it was like episode 7 or 8. So,
Hmm.
earlier this year, when she was back in Australia doing a film tour, so was able to chat to her in person.
Hmm.
Absolute legend. She's about to become the first woman to walk the length of the Americas from the southern tip of South America all the way up to northern Alaska. And
Hmm.
I knew she was going to be on the GDT, and it was
Yeah.
super cool to see you guys cross paths for a
Yeah.
couple of days. You got to meet Wombat, her pup, who's walking the length of the Americas with her, which is wild.
Yeah.
What was that like, hanging out with Lucy for a
Oh, it
couple of
was
days?
so fun. Yeah. I mean, it was fun because obviously like we're in a very specific space, of being like the first woman to do the things that we are doing. And she also does a lot of video recording documentation, so it felt like finding another kindred spirit in a way in finding her. And then we had been actually in touch since I was in Colorado, and I didn't think I was going to catch her because she was in Montana already when I was in Colorado, and I was like, there's no chance that I can catch up to you over like 3 states. But we had gotten connected because she was having some issues with the border crossing, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to figure that out too. So that's how we got connected, through one person who follows both of us, and and then we just kept in touch the rest of the way because she was like, when are you gonna catch me? When are you gonna catch me? I was like, there's no chance I'm catching you. And but she tends to take a lot of time in town to, I guess, to recover for Wombat, but also just to do her own like media. And she's on a much more longer term hike, so it's not necessarily about pushing through the end of the season. And so for that reason, I was able to catch her, and I was super excited about it because, yeah, I mean, just getting to talk to another woman. I also have never hiked with another woman on the PCT. I hiked with only men. In the San Juans, I hiked with only Slide. I didn't hike the Colorado Trail with anybody. So I just didn't have any like, like pretty awesome female hiking friends to look up to and be around. And so that was really special and was a really nice boost because mentally at that point of the hike, I was quite tired. I'd been pushing really hard to get to the Canada on time. And then I think by that point I was like, I'm ready to take a bit of a break and rest. So it was great, really energizing.
That's super cool. Yeah, a couple of legends and super inspirational female hikers, which I'm sure lots of people look up to you both, which is really cool to see you in one video. And Lucy even commentated or did the voiceover for one of your videos,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah. And I
hilarious.
did
Yeah, it
hers,
was
which
super
I
cool.
think, yeah, she posts those to her Entangled members, like her subscription only channel, so I don't think that a lot of people have seen it. But I wrote and recorded her script as well. So it was kind of a nice crossover. It was really fun. It's more fun, I
Yeah,
think, to do
so
somebody
good.
else's video than to do your own.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
You mentioned nutrition briefly before. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your thoughts and your plan with your nutrition and just your recovery in general. You know, you're putting in huge miles day after day through tough terrain for months on end,
Hmm.
and for the most part seemed to pull up every day pretty well. Like I don't remember you having any major injuries or anything like that. What was your plan going in with nutrition, recovery, sleep, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So one of the things that came out of my depression was my doctor asked me to hire a nutritionist. It actually came with my insurance. I didn't realize, but I think everybody should go check if their insurance covers a nutritionist because mine did, and I had 50 free visits a year that I hadn't been using for however many years. So once I found that out, I hired a nutritionist, and she specifically had also done a lot of through hiking or some through hiking herself. So she was familiar with this like endurance nutrition mindset, and also the I was telling her like what are the limitations on trail, and I need to be carrying this amount of calories per gram and whatever. And so we worked through that on the Colorado Trail because one of the things that I struggled with on the PCT was I was eating a lot of calories, but it was primarily sugar. I ate so much Nutella. I was eating like a jar of Nutella every 3 days, I think, which is quite fast. And I was also eating like a lot of Oreos, just a lot of sugary things. And towards the end of the PCT, after the PCT, I went to do a physical, and the doctor was like, "You are pre-diabetic. You need to, I mean, you're healthy, but you need to cut down on the sugar and go back to being more balanced." And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to do another long-term thing like this, like I can't just eat crap because people say that when you're through hiking, you can just eat whatever, like candy, whatever, and just goes right through you. But the impact is still there. Your body is still processing what you're eating. And I do think that what you eat makes a big difference. And when you eat it makes a big difference as well. And so when I was working with my nutritionist, I said, these are the things that I really want to work on. Also in the PCT, as a woman, you might experience it's called REDS, a relative energy deficiency syndrome, where if you are not eating enough calories to match your calorie output beyond a certain threshold, you will lose your period. You just your body will start shutting down the non-essential systems, and they'll say you're not healthy enough right now to have a baby, so we're going to just shut down your whole reproductive system. And that's something that I think shows up in a lot of elite athletes as well, or people with eating disorders. And I lost my period on the PCT 3 times out of 5 months. So I was very like I wanted to use it sort of as a benchmark for staying healthy. And so on the Colorado Trail, I made sure to eat a lot more. I had a lot more variety in my food. I was really trying in town instead of just like getting a giant pizza or a big carb loading thing. I was trying to get nutritions in. So eating a lot more salads and fruit and probiotics as well. And I think that made a big difference in my Colorado Trail hike. I also spent a lot more energy thinking about electrolytes and hydration, etc. Yeah, and so we applied those same principles to my preparation for this hike. So I did a lot more resupply prep in advance, like making sure that I had enough calorie dense food, but also a lot of fiber and also a lot more protein. I really wasn't focusing on protein at all on the PCT. And on this hike, I made a point of eating a lot of protein, which is hard for me. Like, it was a hard adjustment because protein is quite heavy. It's heavy for the number of calories that you get per gram, but it is important for your muscles and for that recovery process because you need to eat carbs and protein to recover from the impact of your day. And I think that made a huge difference. I didn't have any real like injuries in terms of like my feet didn't hurt towards the end. I never had any real soreness in my legs, except, at the beginning when you're just adjusting in that first week. I never had any like cramping or anything. The only issue that I had injury wise was an overuse injury where the weight of the snowshoes was starting to impact my ankles. My ankles were just pulling the weight of the snowshoes, which are like 2 pounds each, and then there's snow on top of the snowshoes, so it's even heavier. And my ankles were just really struggling with the impact of that for many hours a day over the course of many weeks. So that was really the only thing that I had an issue with, but everything else, I feel like my nutrition was very on point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so many through hikers just don't give it enough thought, and there is sort of like this general mindset out there that just get the sugar and the carbs in because that's what I need for
Yeah.
energy, and that'll sort of do me. And the
Hmm.
reality is, man, countless through hikers on the Triple Crown trails and trails across the world every year have their hikes ended prematurely because of injury, sickness,
Hmm.
burnout, and a
Yeah.
lot of that is caused from micronutritional nutritional deficiencies and even macronutritional deficiencies, like you were saying,
Yeah.
a lack of protein
Yeah.
is pretty common as well, just because yeah, it is hard to get adequate protein on trail. And I think that's the reason that I've had a lot of success with avoiding injury, sickness, and burnout on all of my trails. I've never had
Hmm.
any major injuries or sicknesses or anything over the last couple of years because I do
Hmm.
try and prioritize nutrition as well and supplement and that kind of stuff. And obviously, I'm building a hiking supplement company as we speak to try and solve this issue for more people as well. And
Yeah.
I love hearing stories and sort of people's experiences that do take their nutrition more seriously because it just pays dividends. Doing
Yeah.
the stuff that you've done while prioritizing your nutrition on trail, it's
Hmm.
just it makes such a big difference. It
Yeah.
helps you sleep, it helps you recover,
Yeah.
it
And with
helps
your mood
your
and
gut
mentality
stay
is so much a part of it.
intact. Your immunity is strong.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
all of that. It's invaluable. That's super super cool.
Yeah.
What was day 153 like for you on
Yeah.
this adventure? You've been out there for
Yeah.
so long. I know your parents came out to pick you up right at the end. What do your parents think of all this through hiking? I'm always interested to know what people's families
Yeah.
thoughts are on their kids or their siblings going off on these massive adventures. They seem pretty happy to see you at the end there.
Yeah. So the first video that I had that sort of went a little viral was actually day 74, which is when my parents came to meet me in Wyoming. And I was surprised by how many people were invested in that video because yeah, I mean, I was ready to see great to see my parents, but I didn't realize how much it would resonate for a lot of people whose parents maybe are not as supportive of their adventures, or maybe they've lost a parent. I know you said you lost your dad when you were 10. So I feel like for a lot of people that was very emotional for them to watch my parents like come and run out to greet me. And yeah, they definitely supported this hike and were happy about it and love to come out and be there for me on trail and would have probably come out to more places if I was like, come to Montana, they would have driven out, but initially when I told them about this hike, they were not happy about it at all. When I talked about the PCT and wanting to take some time away from work, initially they were like, sorry, I think I said to them, I want to do a hike for 5 months. And my mom was like, where do you even walk for 5 months? Like, how can you walk for 5 months? And
Yeah.
I was like, well, I would go from Mexico to Canada. And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, I think that's what I want to do. And she's like, do people do this? And I was like, yeah, a lot of people do it actually every year. And she's like, wow, people are crazy. There's a lot of crazy people out there, is what she said, I think. I remember when I told my dad, he was like, why? And I was like, because you can. Like, why not? It's out there. It's beautiful. Um, when else am I going to do this? And I think when I told my grandma, because my grandma had done a lot of walking herself, but it was to escape the Japanese in the Sino-Chinese War in the 1940s or
Wow.
whenever that was. So
Slightly
she was
different,
like,
yeah.
yeah, a bit different. It was a bit more of it's more at stake. And she was like, you want to put yourself through this? What? So there's a saying in Chinese, it's called true cool, which means to eat bitterness. And that's like I think it's almost like a cultural zeitgeist that's like just ingrained in that culture of like yeah just like put in your time like it's just gonna just be there for the suffering. And my grandma was like, did you not eat enough bitterness in your life that you have to go seek it out? And I was like, I think that's it. Yeah, basically, like I'm too soft. I think I have to go. But I think it's true in that like if you don't put yourself through these kinds of challenges that you have specifically chosen, you will find other things to be challenged by. Like your brain is going to then take these things that are not actually a big deal and make them into a big deal. And once you've done enough of your own challenges,
Yeah.
like mentally, physically, you're like, actually, I can do this, and this is not a big deal. And I feel like I've become much more balanced, maybe person emotionally because I've done all that hard stuff and I've chosen to go do that hard stuff. But when I went to go do this hike, I think I was worried to some degree. I mean, yeah, I think anybody who does through hikes will agree with that sentiment there. But when I went to go do this hike, I was worried that maybe there was a part of me that was continuing to seek out pain and suffering and growth for the sake of the pain itself. I had a really powerful moment in one of my meditation courses where, because all my meditation courses that I've done have been really painful. Like sitting for that hour is very, very painful, especially because I had had a knee surgery in 2020, an ACL tear repair. So sitting was always painful. And then there was one course that I did where I didn't have any pain, and I thought that I was doing something wrong because I associated meditation with pain. So I went to the teacher and I was like, I don't know why I'm not having any pain. Am I stretching too much? Should I stop stretching? And she was like, why are you looking for the pain? And I was like, oh my God, this is my whole life. My whole life I've just been looking for the pain, like trying to find the pain because I associated pain with growth. And so I was thinking, am I just doing this CDT, GDT to like find more pain? Like, at what point do you just want to be comfortable? Is there a point where I would be mature enough to be like, I don't need to put myself through more pain. I've grown enough. Or, am I just doing this to sort of self-flagellate into some better version of myself? Um, and the conclusion that I came to was, no, I actually want to do this for myself, and I do think that there's more growth there. Um, but when I told my parents I wanted to do this, they were like, no, you're gonna die. Why would you want to do this? I think that there was a part of them and also a part of me that thought that I was only able to do the PCT because I was hiking with men. And this is like, just sort of ingrained in you, sociologic, like socialized. You're socialized into this belief that as a woman, you can't do it unless you have like a man there or something, and so there's no doubt in my mind that I was able to do the PCT because of the guys that I hiked with. Like they definitely helped me get through a lot of challenging things, but I also helped them. I wasn't giving myself enough credit for like my role also in their hikes. And that is part of what it is to be in a partnership with a hiking partner. But on the CDT and GDT, I would be doing it alone. So my parents were like, you're gonna die. And it was just a completely irrational perspective because I would ask them to say, like, tell me what is it that you're worried about? And they're like, well, what if, I mean, the snow. And I'm like, well, I've hiked through snow before. I know the terrain. I feel pretty comfortable making decisions about my own risk level and tolerance. But they were like, what about avalanches? And I was like, well, I thought about that too. And they had so many things that I was trying to approach it from a logical perspective, and they couldn't get there because they were not coming at it from a logical, rational perspective. But I think what helped them turn around to it was, so my dad, when they dropped me off at the PCT Southern Terminus, and my dad actually gave a speech at that terminus. It was really funny, very endearing. But he just like stood at that Southern Terminus and started speaking like, ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today. And all the other hikers and the PCTA volunteers were like, who is this guy? But it was really a special speech because he was like, I'm so proud of you, and you're going to walk this big thing, and I'm going to be with you. And so I wanted him to write a speech also for my CDT departure and give him a chance to sort of give his blessing in a way. It was really important to me to feel like I had their support. And so, and he wasn't going to come to the terminus. It's a bit far, just very difficult to drive there. So I said I would read it for him at the terminus. Yeah, he ended up sending me a video of him recording his speech in Mandarin. And it was really emotional for me to like watch that at the terminus and also speak his words at the terminus. And the words that he said were something around like, basically the message was, I'm scared for you, but I'm going to be waiting for you when you come back. And I was like, this is so
Wow.
powerful to be able to be, as a parent, hold those two sides because it is really scary. And then later on, so when I was in the first stages of New Mexico, my parents were in Greece on vacation, and my dad went to a stadium. You know those stadiums in Greece that are like ancient auditoriums that have built-in amphitheater sound, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he went to the center of that amidst all these tourists and then started speaking also. He just read his speech in English from this Greek auditorium, and my mom recorded it. It's like 7 minutes long. And people actually sat down in the auditorium to listen to him speak, and then they clapped for him when he finished. And yeah, made me feel like, okay, yeah, they really do want to see me through this. So yeah.
Your mom and dad they sound awesome. That's super cool.
Yeah, they're great. They're very supportive. They're people who show their love by doing and also through food, and that's like just the perfect thing for a thru hiker. You don't want to necessarily like blab all the time, but not even like keeping in touch all the time when you're on trail and in town, but just to be there with them and just be in their presence and be eating food together. That's a really special thing. So yeah. But sorry, you were also asking about
That's
the
awesome.
ending
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. How was the end?
Yeah, I think the ending for me, it wasn't even just 153. It was like the 3 days of the ending, because it sort of felt like I had my last full day on trail. It was very emotional. I also saw the terminus from where I was. So that's when I think like I had all my emotions. And then day 152 is the actual terminus day where I got to the terminus and got to experience the little cabin that's there. And then day 153 is when I got out to my parents. So I feel like it was all three of those days. And it was so emotional because so day 151 was my last full day on trail. And I think that on that day, I saw some glaciers that were very, very small compared to what they should have looked like on the on my topography map. It shows like what the glaciers' original boundaries were in the 1960s before climate change really started taking off. And it was really emotional for me because I think as I've been walking along this divide, I started to notice more and more how much climate change is affecting the water sources. And it's really scary because the snowpack and the glaciers hold a lot of our fresh water. And if you let that melt too fast or it's not there to store it, then we lose this sort of free resource of water management. And if it washes away too fast, then you get erosion. You also don't get enough water later on. You get flooding, but then you also get not enough water later on. And then you have to go pull it out of the ocean again and desalinate the ocean in order to have that fresh water again. So, and I had also been walking alone for so long, I'd seen all the wildlife and the birds and everything that was depending on the water that we were destroying essentially. And so it was emotional for me to like see that and think about how far I'd walked and from the high deserts of New Mexico all the way to the high peaks of the Canadian Rockies. I did on day 151, I did an alternate that goes up onto this high route and you see this like wide ridge line and all these mountains. And I felt like there were so many callbacks for me on that ridge line where it felt like it looked like as flat and barren as New Mexico, but the mountains on the side reminded me of Glacier National Park, and I saw these fossils that reminded me of Wyoming, and the glaciers reminded me of the rest of Canada and the water and the importance of water. And so it just felt very emotional everywhere on that one ridge line. And I remember playing, I have a playlist of songs that I like for the tops of mountains and summits. And I had played that a lot in Wyoming when I was on the high routes, and I think day 77 I talk about it. And so to get onto that summit and be playing that music, I was like, this is so just like overwhelmingly resonant. And I felt like everything was coming together for me. And then on that alternate, you can see the Kakwa Lake, which is the terminus of the GDT. And my first time seeing that lake, I was just crying and crying because I was like, oh my God, like after all this time, here it is. It really exists. And I'm really going to walk there and I'm so close. So that was really emotional. Day 152, actually getting to that lake was also emotional because, like, at that point, I know I'm going to finish. I'm like 6 miles away from the end. It's like, you know, that feeling when you get close to the terminus and you know how close you are and you just know, like, the timing of how long it's going to be at this point. Because you know, okay, if I'm 6 miles away, I'm hiking this 3 miles an
Yeah.
hour, then that's 2 hours away, and then 1.5 hours away, and then 1 hour, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It's just a really surreal feeling. Yeah, getting there was also difficult. It was very cold that day. Like the mud was frozen, but I also had to ford creeks and things. Still a lot of bushwhacking. So it was just like still challenges all the way to the end, and then actually reaching that terminus after seeing the caribou, I was just like, this is just magical, amazing. There's actually a cabin at the end of this GDT trail. It's a ranger cabin and then a public cabin that hikers can stay in with like beds and a stove. And so I think I hung out there for 5 hours reading the little trail log and just basking in the warmth of the lake. And then when I exited, that's when I ended up running into the snowmobile club guys that I talked about on day 153. And that just felt like another full circle moment because these guys did not necessarily believe in climate change. They think it's happening, but they don't think it's human caused. And that's like totally opposite to what I believe, but I still felt so cradled by their generosity. And I felt like it was such a good ending because it felt like it was coming together with everything else that I'd experienced and the trail magic and this idea of like we do have to find a balance and how do we get everybody to understand the impact that we're having on our environment. Yeah, it was really emotional.
Yeah, that's it's pretty special feeling finishing a journey like that, and like you said, a lot of things came full circle for you towards the end of that journey. I
Hmm.
wrote a quote down from your final vlog that
Oh
really
yeah.
resonated with me, and we'll wrap this up, and I really want to read it out. You
Yeah.
said, "We don't know for sure what lies beyond this life. We may not even have tomorrow, but I never feel richer than when I'm out here surrounded by the earth's abundance." And that hit home for me. Um,
Oh.
because I feel that same way. So rich when I'm outside.
Yeah.
Nature is such a special place. What is
Hmm.
it for you about being outside, being on trail, especially this trip on the CDT GDT, being out there alone in the wild and going through all the ups and downs that keeps bringing you back and brings you so much peace and joy?
I think it is this feeling that this is where we are supposed to be. Like, I think everybody who through hikes will have this feeling of cutting everything back to the most simplest version of yourself and realizing that you don't really need that much to be happy. And you actually, like, how many things that are not important in your life? And the things that are important are just these few things. And it's just kind of like a North Star, I think, for the rest of your life. And that's what I think is so powerful about this idea of walking north and forever, not forever, but for this period of time in your life when you've given yourself this gift of this continuous forward motion. It's just, there are so many life lessons that you can pull out of doing a through hike. It's like a little mini course in a way of like how to be in the world. And it's so special and powerful. And I do think that people should, I think yeah, doing a through hike is quite an effort in terms of getting the time and saving the money. But I think if you can, absolutely go do that. If you can't, then get outside in any way that makes sense for you, because just being outside in nature in the sunlight is so healing and it's necessary. It's how we get back to ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. It's where we're meant to be. I tell people that all the time. It's just sort of our natural state outside.
Hmm.
We are certainly not meant to be stuck in a concrete room staring at screens all day every day. There's
Hmm.
great parts about those things, safety and shelter and socialization and being connected with the world, but it's not where we're meant to be as a default state. We're supposed to be outside. And if you can't go through hike, go hit up your local trails. And if you can't do
Hmm.
that, just go down to your local park and go barefoot on the grass while the sun is
Hmm.
out, and you'll feel the kind of thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's
It's really
grounding.
powerful. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's grounding, and everyone just needs to get outside. That's
Yes.
that's that's uh, that's the message I have, and why this podcast exists. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you echoing that sentiment. Thanks so much
Hmm.
for coming on, Jess. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Cam. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, heaps of fun, and I'm sure we'll catch up again very soon. Where can people find you if they want to catch up on your adventures, or stay tuned for the next ones?
Yeah, so on Instagram and TikTok, I am at Where is Jessica with a dot before the CA. Not because I go by Jessie, just because that was the URL that I got, a Canadian URL. And then I also have a Substack, which is substack.com/ at Jessica Guo, my last name. And I think on that one you can subscribe to my writing. And then I have a YouTube, which is at Where is Jessica with two A's. I'd like to put more long form content up there, but right now, there's not much because I didn't do anything during my hike on there, and that's where you can find me.
Incredible. I'll leave all of those links in the podcast description so you guys can go show some love to Jess, and yeah, thank her for joining us on the pod. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow wherever you're listening and rate the podcast 5 stars. We very much appreciate it here at the Life Outside podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Cam.